Let's rewind to 1996. Picture the gaming world at the dawn of three-dimensional graphics. Companies were racing to dominate this new frontier, and ATI Technologies entered the arena with its Rage series. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Nobody cared. While 3DFX dazzled gamers with its Voodoo cards and Nvidia prepared to reshape the industry, ATI's Rage cards simply existed. They worked, sure. They displayed images on screens. But they didn't inspire passion or loyalty. The Rage cards occupied that awkward middle ground between terrible and exciting. In gaming culture, being mediocre might actually be worse than being awful. At least awful products generate memorable stories and passionate complaints. The Rage series? Forgettable. Functional. Always third place. Even when the Rage 128 showed genuine improvement and secured placement in Apple computers, ATI remained a background character. They survived, but without respect. Without the kind of buzz that builds brands and wins hearts. Think about this dynamic in your own life. How many times have you been competent but overlooked? Capable but ignored? ATI understood this painful reality for years. They weren't failing dramatically enough to quit, but they weren't succeeding brilliantly enough to matter. Then came the year 2000. ATI made a decision that would change everything. They stopped chasing their competitors and started challenging them. The original Radeon DDR arrived with a feature called Hyper-Z, a clever engineering solution that optimized memory bandwidth. This wasn't about matching Nvidia specification for specification. This was about thinking differently. For the first time, ATI wasn't apologizing for its existence. The Radeon DDR made an argument. It said, "We belong here, we have ideas, and we deserve your attention." Benchmark victories remained elusive. Nvidia still held the performance crown. But something fundamental had shifted. Gamers started talking about ATI products with genuine interest rather than dismissive shrugs. The company had earned something precious and rare: credibility. This transformation mirrors a universal truth about competition. You don't need to defeat your rivals immediately. You need to prove you can fight on their level. You need to demonstrate that engaging with you isn't a waste of time. ATI achieved this with the Radeon brand, transforming from afterthought to legitimate contender. But credibility alone doesn't win wars. ATI needed a knockout punch, a moment so decisive that it would redefine the entire competitive landscape. That moment arrived in 2002 with the Radeon 9700 Pro. This wasn't just another graphics card. This was a revolution. The 9700 Pro became the first consumer GPU to support DirectX 9, the latest graphics standard. It delivered massive performance improvements over the previous generation. Most importantly, it arrived at the perfect moment. Nvidia's competing product, the GeForce FX, collapsed spectacularly. Heat problems, disappointing performance, and delayed launches turned Nvidia's answer into a cautionary tale. ATI didn't just win. They embarrassed their rival. Overnight, Radeon transformed from credible challenger to undisputed king. The follow-up, the 9800 Pro, cemented this dominance. For a brief, glorious period, ATI ruled the GPU world without serious competition. They had achieved total victory through impeccable timing and flawless execution. Consider what this teaches us about opportunity. Success often requires more than just good work. It requires being ready when your opponent stumbles, when the market shifts, when circumstances align. ATI had been preparing for years, building capability in obscurity. When their moment arrived, they seized it completely. Yet triumph proved fleeting. Between 2004 and 2007, ATI's crown began to slip. They didn't collapse. They didn't release terrible products. The X800 and X1900 cards traded blows with Nvidia's offerings, winning some battles and losing others. But something intangible had changed. The aura of dominance faded. Nvidia controlled the narrative through stronger shader performance and better-timed product launches. ATI responded rather than led. They remained competitive, certainly. Relevant, absolutely, but no longer feared. No longer the company that made competitors sweat. The acquisition by AMD in 2006 added another layer of uncertainty. Would this merger strengthen Radeon or distract from its mission? This phase illustrates a harsh reality about maintaining success. Winning once doesn't guarantee winning forever. The skills that bring you to the top aren't always the skills that keep you there. ATI discovered that staying competitive requires constant innovation, not just occasional brilliance. They survived this period, but momentum, that precious force that carries companies forward, slipped away. The HD 2900 XT in 2007 represented ATI's, now AMD's, first major stumble under new ownership. The card arrived hot, loud, and expensive. It disappointed performance expectations and embarrassed the engineering team. But here's where AMD's story becomes truly interesting. They learned. The HD 4870, released in 2008, rewrote the value equation for graphics cards. It introduced GDDR5 memory to mainstream consumers and featured aggressive pricing that forced Nvidia to respond. This wasn't about building the absolute fastest card. This was about delivering exceptional performance per dollar. AMD followed this strategy with DirectX 11 leadership and Eyefinity, a technology enabling multi-monitor gaming setups. While Nvidia pursued brute force and premium pricing, AMD focused on efficiency and accessibility. They weren't winning hearts through vanity metrics. They were winning hearts through value. This strategic shift resonated with a broad audience of gamers who wanted great experiences without emptying their wallets. Think about the wisdom here. When you can't beat your opponent at their own game, change the rules. Define success differently. AMD recognized they couldn't always build the fastest GPU, so they built the smartest value proposition instead. The HD 7970, released in 2012, introduced a concept that would define AMD's reputation for years. Fine wine. This term described how Radeon cards improved over time through driver optimization. While Nvidia cards often peaked at launch, AMD cards got better months and even years later through software updates. This longevity transformed purchasing decisions. Gamers who bought HD 7970s discovered their cards remained competitive far longer than expected. AMD quietly built a reputation for long-term value. Yes, some rebrands and reference coolers dented consumer trust. But performance per dollar kept Radeon relevant in a market where raw power wasn't everything. The fine wine era demonstrates how success can come from unexpected places. AMD couldn't always match Nvidia's launch day performance, so they turned consistent software improvement into a competitive advantage. They made patience profitable. Then came the RX 480 and RX 580 in 2016 and 2017. These cards represented everything AMD did well: affordable, capable, accessible. They became the default choice for budget-conscious gamers worldwide. Polaris architecture delivered exactly what mainstream audiences needed without unnecessary premium features. But external forces destroyed this success. The cryptocurrency mining boom turned graphics cards into money-printing machines. Prices skyrocketed. Availability evaporated. Cards intended for gamers ended up in mining farms, running 24 hours a day calculating blockchain transactions. AMD's triumph became its curse. They had built the people's GPU, and the people couldn't buy it. Vega, AMD's attempt to reclaim high-end performance, arrived late and expensive in 2017. It offered interesting features but couldn't overcome timing and pricing disadvantages. AMD maintained mid-range dominance, but the top tier remained frustratingly out of reach. This period taught a painful lesson. Creating great products doesn't guarantee market success when external disruptions intervene. RDNA architecture, introduced in 2019, represented a fundamental reset. This wasn't iteration. This was rebuilding from the ground up. The RX 5700 XT restored confidence among enthusiasts. It proved AMD could still innovate architecturally, not just optimize existing designs. Then came RDNA 2. The RX 6000 series brought AMD back to true high-end competition. Infinity Cache, a brilliant engineering solution, solved bandwidth limitations without expensive memory configurations. In traditional rasterized gaming, AMD finally matched Nvidia's best offerings. Ray tracing performance lagged behind, certainly. But the gap was no longer embarrassing. AMD had designed smart solutions rather than chasing brute force. This comeback illustrates the power of strategic thinking. AMD identified what mattered most to most gamers, traditional performance, and dominated there. They accepted weaknesses in emerging technologies like ray tracing while building strength in established markets. Today, with RDNA 3 and chiplet GPU designs, AMD continues its philosophy of efficient, scalable competition. They don't chase every benchmark victory. They don't compete in every category. Instead, they choose battles carefully. Console gaming? AMD powers PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X value-focused desktop gaming. Radeon remains compelling. Cutting-edge ray tracing and AI? Nvidia dominates, and AMD accepts this. This strategic competition, not reckless escalation, defines modern Radeon. AMD understands they can't win everywhere, so they win where it matters most for their business and their customers. They pursue relevance, adoption, and sustainability over prestige. So what makes Radeon's story remarkable? It's not about permanent victory. Radeon has never achieved lasting dominance. Instead, their story is about refusal to disappear. Every fall led to reinvention. Every loss forced smarter engineering. From mocked rage cards to console dominance and chiplet architectures, Radeon survives because it adapts. Nvidia may lead the graphics card industry in revenue, mindshare, and cutting-edge technology, but Nvidia never gets to relax. AMD ensures competition continues. They keep pushing, innovating, and finding new angles of attack. Their persistence creates value for all consumers by preventing monopoly complacency. Let me leave you with this thought. We live in a culture obsessed with winning, with being number one, with total domination. But Radeon's journey suggests a different definition of success. What if true achievement isn't about never falling, but about always rising? What if strategic competition, knowing which battles to fight, matters more than fighting every battle? In your own life, you'll face competitors with more resources, better timing, or superior advantages. The Radeon story teaches that you don't need to beat them everywhere. You need to find where your strengths matter most. You need to adapt when circumstances change. You need to refuse disappearance even when everyone counts you out. Here's my question for you. When was the last time you faced overwhelming competition? Did you give up, or did you find a different angle? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone else facing similar challenges. Remember, persistence beats perfection. Adaptation beats raw power. And choosing the right battles beats fighting them all. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about resilience, strategy, and the human spirit behind technology.